my brother helped me set up this tiny little website, HITRECORD.org. Even at that small scale, there were some people who wanted to make things together. I don't just mean people sharing things online. I mean people making things together that they couldn't have made without each other. We published books, put out records, screened our short films at film festivals, put on live events at big venues. We made a television show, things that no isolated individual could have made on their own. Let's get back to the fun stuff.
Please welcome in conversation with Laurie Siegel, award-winning actor and co-founder of HITRECORD, Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Hi guys.
And this is Laurie Siegel, everybody, and fantastic journalist.
That was all for me, right? Familiar with this guy? Right? I'm so happy to be here with you.
Yeah, it's really good. Thanks for coming out, you
Right?
guys. Really good to see you here.
So I know a lot of folks know you as an actor. I've come to know you as an entrepreneur over the last couple years. And I've also known you've always been obsessed with the internet. And this idea of creativity and collaboration. And so I want to jump right into HITRECORD, but first, what is it about creativity and collaboration? Like, why this obsession? And if you don't believe he's obsessed with it, like, go to his Twitter feed. I believe the last tweets, you asked people how would you ruin a date in one sentence? Tweet him. I want to see everyone's tattoos. Tweet him. Take a picture of the ground and post it. Literally, just like collaborate, tweet, you know. You love people, you love creativity. What is it?
Well, I guess probably just from a long time ago, I've been really lucky to get a lot out of creativity. I consider myself really fortunate that early in life, I figured out, wow, I really love acting. And I happened to grow up in a suburb of Los Angeles where that was more available to me than most people in the world, and I had supportive parents who didn't pressure me into doing it, but were, like I said, supportive in helping me do it. And I've gotten so much joy and fulfillment out of those kinds of creative environments, being on set and acting with people, figuring out a scene, working on stuff that I've always just been one of my favorite things to do. It's really kind of, that's where my happiness has always come from, especially in my professional life, leaving aside family. And yeah, so the stuff that you see that you're talking about on Twitter is really just perhaps me feeling guilty that I've gotten so much joy and fulfillment out of this, and wanting other people that might not have been as privileged or fortunate as I've been to say like, hey, this is something that we can all do together.
And I want to get to HITRECORD, and before we kind of get to it, let's talk about where it came from. And it seems to me, if I recall, like you as an actor, hard to believe, but you were kind of getting rejected a lot.
Yeah, it's not that hard to believe, but thank you. I'm flattered you'd say that. Yeah, no, that's exactly where it came from. Like I said, I got to be an actor ever since I was a little kid, and then I quit when I was 19 because I wanted to go to college. And then when I wanted to get back into acting a couple years later, I couldn't get a job. No one would cast me in anything, and that was really, really painful, because when you're an actor especially, you need someone to cast you in order to do the acting. And
they just believed you should be one thing, and you believed you should be something different.
Yeah, I believed I should be in their movie, and they were like, I don't believe you should be in our movie. So this out of this pain came like sort of this realization, like, okay, well, I can't wait around for someone to cast me in a part. I have to take responsibility for my own creativity. And HITRECORD at that time was just this little turn of phrase, this little like moment of comfort or mantra that I had for myself. Like, you know what? I'm not gonna wait for them to cast me. I'm gonna push the button, and the round red record button became this like symbol for me of like, I'm gonna hit record, I'm gonna push the button and start making my own things. And I started making my own little videos and songs and stories and stuff, and that's all HITRECORD was at the time. This is like early mid 2000s. And then my brother helped me set up a little tiny website. first, it was literally a single page of HTML with a few links of little videos and stuff that I had made, and that's all it was. And we called it HITRECORD.org after this little turn of phrase that I had been saying to myself. And very slowly, it sort of gradually evolved. Eventually, we put a little message board on that website, and for like the techies out there, it was like one of those just PHP message boards, like prefab that anybody could set up. But the message board was where the community started. That was the beginning of people being able to like sign up, create an account on this message board. And what we saw was, okay, well, some people, they want to check out the little videos and songs and stuff that I'm making. But what a lot of people want to do is make things together. And I remember seeing that because it wasn't what we had intended it for. But when we noticed that this is what people wanted to do, we're like, that's cool. And that's sincerely new and different, because just watching a video or listening to a song on the internet, it's not really that different from old technology, television or radio or movies or whatever. But using the internet to collaborate, to have people come together and work on things together that they wouldn't have been able to make on their own, that felt like, oh, this would have been impossible X number of years ago, really recently. This is new behavior that humans can now do they couldn't have done before because of this technology. And so we thought this is what HITRECORD is really about, is this collaboration. And it resonated back with my experience that I've always had, because working on a set is a very collaborative thing. And a lot of the joy that comes from a set is being creative with other people. Right. And so from there, it sort of evolved. And this community, again, just gradually grew and started to thrive more and more, and people were making things together until in 2010, it was almost 10 years ago now, I got together with my friend and co-founder Jared Geller, who's backstage somewhere, and we started saying, like, what if this community, this sort of collaborative creative process, could power a production company? And we figured out how to make that happen. We figured out how to set up the intellectual property laws, the terms of service, how people could remix each other, build off of what each other was doing, how if productions were monetized, how we could pay people. And we made a list of things we'd like to accomplish, like maybe one day we could use this sort of collaborative methodology to make a short film that could get into Sundance, or one day we could publish a book or put out a record, or maybe one day we could like even make a TV show or something like that. And then over the years we did all those things. And our TV show won an Emmy, and we've worked with different brands, big brands like LG and Sony and Samsung, and nonprofits like the ACLU, and we've paid people almost $3 million now, and we have published books and we've put out records, and I'm really, really proud of everything that we've gotten to do as a production company. And then just in the last couple years, we sort of said, like, okay, so we did all that, but we're hitting a certain limit of how many people can really be involved in this collaborative process. Because when we're the ones leading these productions, only so many people can come and get involved in those productions. And that's when we realized, like, okay, if we wanted to open that up and let anybody come lead a project and really let an infinite number of people get involved in this collaborative process, we need better technology. And that's when we sort of waded into the world of technology, which is when I met you.
Right. And I want to get to that, because I think a lot of things happen. And so everyone kind of understands how this works. So essentially, people come, they have an idea, artists are able to come to the platform, and everybody gets involved, and these things get funded, and everyone kind of comes together to create something. You guys have had this real success. And when I met you, it was at Collision or Web Summit a couple years ago, and a lot of things were happening. We were having this conversation about the internet and isolation, and things were getting kind of weird on the internet and social media.
In 2016?
Yeah, 2016. And I interviewed you, and the next day Donald Trump was elected president of the United States, and we were talking a lot about tech and isolation and social networks, and also, you know, this idea of creativity and how creativity was getting harder because of the way social networks were set up. And you were talking about how it was making the creative process a little bit more difficult. Explain that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So.
And you can even explain it in the term of how you talked to me a little bit, compared it to the movies and how you shoot movies.
Yeah. Well, so I think that, to your point, creativity can be difficult when your incentives are all about how much attention can I get for this? Or in terms of movies, what's the box office going to be? Or is this movie going to make me famous? What's it going to be like to walk the red carpet? When these are the kinds of things that you have on your mind, I think it can twist what I've found to be that joyful, meaningful thing that I was talking about a minute ago. And where you really hit that joy, that kind of flow state, is not when you're focused on the red carpets and the attention and the box office, but when you're focused on the actual creative process itself of being on set and making stuff together with other people. And I do think that a lot of social media platforms today, they really emphasize the attention getting. Those are the incentives that you have. That's what the user experience provides you, is what can you get? What are your goals? You can get followers, you can get likes. There isn't really a way for the business model of those media tech platforms to measure and monetize a meaningful creative experience. It's more about how much attention can I get? And I think that when you set out to make a thing, whether it's a song or a short film or a story or whatever, and your ultimate path is going to be posting it on one of these platforms, then you go through in your mind and you start thinking while you're in the middle of writing or singing or whatever, is this going to get a lot of likes? How many followers is this going to get me? And I think that's not really good for the creative process.
Did you find yourself comparing yourself to other actors and their millions
of course,
of followers?
I'm definitely not
Which actors?
immune to this.
Which ones?
I'm not going to say which ones. The probably obvious ones. I don't know. Yeah. Anyone that I like. We're human. I think it's natural to compare ourselves to each other, but I think that's sort of a human weakness that these platforms exploit to their advantage. And with HITRECORD, what we're trying to build now is a different kind of collaborative media platform that puts the emphasis less on how much attention can I get for this, and more how meaningful can this creative experience be with these other people. Less about, hey, look at me and look what I've made, and more about what can we all make together.
So let's talk about what you're doing. So in the time that I spoke to you then, you actually went out to Silicon Valley and you raised money to move HITRECORD beyond a production company and really turn it into a technology company. So what does that mean? Explain the shift. Talk to me a little bit about who you raised money from.
Sure, yeah. So we never had to raise money before. We made money as a production company. When we would partner with brands or when we would make a TV show or something, we would make money. We would pay our contributors, and the company was able to pay its bills and grow a bit. But like I said, we were running into these limits of how many people can we really include when we don't have enough of a technology and product team to really build tools that allow people to effectively lead their own projects. And so, yeah, we went up to Silicon Valley saying like, hey, we've done all this as a production company. We've amassed this community that's really special, that has a uniquely positive and encouraging and safe sort of feeling to it. And we think that this can be something that grows beyond a production company if we focus it in terms of it being a platform for anybody to come and lead their own projects. But we need to be able to build the better tools, and that's why we didn't want to raise money in Hollywood, which might have been easier because I know lots of people in Hollywood. We wanted to go into Silicon Valley, and we pitched technology VCs with this idea, and we were able to raise a great Series A, and we raised $6.5 million, and we were able to hire. We went from literally 0 product people to now, then we had 1, and now we have 5. We had 4 engineers, and then we had 5, and now we have 10. And now we're really finally able to start building things that are going to allow more and more people to come and lead their own projects and find the collaborators and have that creative experience, find that meaningful, joyful experience that I've been lucky enough to enjoy my whole life of being creative with other people.
I mean, you could have gone to Hollywood. You could have taken the easy path, but you went to Silicon Valley, and you very much kind of had to explain yourself in this new type of context. And I know you're Joseph Gordon-Levitt, right? And I know that probably opened some doors. What was the most challenging part of having to, not play entrepreneur, but actually go in And I'm assuming the timing was on your side because there is this narrative around technology about we need to find a better way to come together, collaborate, make it a little bit, less evil in some capacity. But what was the most challenging part? Talk to us about what you learned about yourself as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right that being an actor and being in some successful movies was helpful and opened doors. There was also, though, another edge to that sword in that a lot of investors assumed, oh, you're an actor, sure, yeah, you're starting a company, you're not really going to be involved in it, and great. But I think once I started talking to folks and saying like, hey, this isn't just a new idea that we just came up with, this is actually something we've been doing for almost 10 years now. We've amassed this community, never having spent any money on ads. We've worked with all these brands. We've won an Emmy for our TV show. I've been heavily involved in this. We're really, really doing this. People started to say like, oh wow, you really are doing this. Okay, cool. And yeah, we were able to find some great partners that have been so valuable. Javelin, Crosslink, Advanceit. These are folks that are not just investing money. These are folks that I'm on the phone with a lot because I admit I haven't seen or been a part of software development, pro-level software development, and I don't want to, have the hubris to say like, well, can't be that hard. I'll just, I'll just do that. I want to surround myself with people who have that experience and the smarts to really provide guidance.
And so let's talk the business model, right? So now you're a venture-backed company that comes along with all sorts of new responsibilities and the pressure to make money. And when it comes to internet companies and the business model, we've run into all sorts of problems in this new era when it comes to that. And what's good for business, as we've learned from social media, is oftentimes not good for human beings. Yeah. How do you avoid falling into the same trap that you're kind of fighting against when it comes to that attention economy?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the problem that I was trying to articulate a second ago about how I think a lot of today's social media platforms can kind of corrupt a creative process, I don't think that the technology itself is the problem. I think actually that it's the business model. To your question about business model, and this isn't an original thought from me, but I really recommend this book. It's called 10 Arguments for Deleting Your Social Media Accounts Right Now by Jaron Lanier. It's a blunt title, but it's actually really sophisticated thinking, and his thesis is just that the business model of giving away a product or service for free while sort of opaquely collecting data about people and using that data to manipulate them towards the will of advertisers who pay lots of money for the ability to manipulate all those users. That's not a sound business model that'll be good for humanity in the long run. That's Jaron's whole thesis, and I think he's an incredibly smart thinker about this stuff. I recommend you read his book. He's become a friend of mine, and so to your point about business model, I was very clear from the beginning in all of these pitch meetings how I feel about that business model, and that if we're going to evolve from a production company into a platform, that we're not going to monetize HITRECORD this way. We've never really focused on sheer volume of eyeballs. We've always really focused on having our community and a real sincere depth of affinity from that community. And I think there's plenty of ways that you can monetize a platform like that aren't working against the wills or sort of opaquely manipulating the wills of the community, but rather helping the community actually do what it wants to do, which is be creative together with other people. And so those are the business models that we're designing right now.
I want to talk a little bit about this idea of creativity. You said something to me, we had a pre-call, and you said something I related to quite a bit regarding creativity. And you were talking about moments of pain or anxiety. I wish we had a couch so we could lay down. You could lay down while I ask you this question. Moments of pain or anxiety or discontent that, you're compelled to write or make something. You've been a creator your whole life. This whole company is you trying to give back to other people and have them create. And I relate in that covering entrepreneurs for 10 years. When you look at And when you look at art, the same theme kind of emerges, and it seems that it's these moments of extraordinary discomfort and pain and like the worst stuff, like in mental gymnastics. I'm sorry if any of you guys are there, that lead to some of these incredible, creative, interesting moments. And I'd be curious to know for you if there are any moments that you could think of, incredible discomfort or pain, and what creativity that's led to.
Sure. Well, I mean, the first example is the pain I was talking about when I couldn't get a role, and HITRECORD was born out of that. I think there are big moments and small moments like that. That's a really interesting question. I mean, in my life, the best way for me to just quell any anxiety, whether it's big anxiety or small anxiety, is to sit down and just kind of focus and do something creative. And that could be like, you know what, I'm just gonna sit here and write meaningless rhymes. Just to like focus my mind and like stop the whirlpool of the way that the human brain can go. Or like, I don't know, the most painful thing in my life, and we're talking about HITRECORD, my brother who I started HITRECORD with died in 2010, and it's the most terrible thing ever for me. He was my best friend, and it was extremely painful. And there's no way to get around that kind of pain. But one of the ways that I found myself able to kind of deal with it would be like writing. And I would write him letters. And I'd write it even though he wasn't going to read them. But just the process of sitting down and writing and making it a well-written letter, something that he might enjoy really reading. And not to show to anybody, but just the process of expressing those thoughts and feelings, I would lift me out of the kind of painful grief that any of you who've ever lost a close loved one knows that you can be feeling. I absolutely, for myself, from my own experience, believe in the power of that whether you like to write or you like to draw or you like to sing or you like to, whatever it is that you like to do, doesn't have to be some kind of professional thing. It doesn't have to be something that, the judges on Idol would give you good marks for. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't matter what it would look like or sound like to anybody else. It's about what it feels like for me while I'm doing it, or for you while you're doing it. That creative process, I think is, well, like I said at the beginning, it's just been the biggest source of joy and meaning for me in my life. And that's, I guess, if there's the one thing that I am trying to kind of put the emphasis back on is that process and that feeling and that experience of doing it from your own point of view, not from other people's point of view, not caring about what it might look like to someone else, but just to appreciate the power of that experience that you yourself can have for yourself.
It almost feels like you're talking about taking your narrative back, or kind of like the power of having your own narrative or being who you are, which, in all fairness, with social media and with the internet and everything that it promised to be, it feels, I think a lot of us feel a little bit more lost when you have this at your fingertips all the time. I think that is harder than it used to be.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you can start telling your story for the benefit of who? For the benefit of, ultimately for the benefit of these platforms that are like monetizing the attention that you can get from whoever pays attention to you while you post. But I also don't want to lead you to believe that what I'm talking about is isolation. You don't have to do this in isolation. You can focus on that kind of creative process with other people. That's actually where I have done it the most. Like I said, being on a set is a very collaborative thing. So again, this is ultimately what we're trying to build with HITRECORD is an environment, an ecosystem that puts that emphasis on the experience of being creative and how that creative experience can often be unlocked when you reach out to other people and say like, hey, let's make something together.
And I also think it takes a real, I was joking last backstage, I unfortunately for you watched Brene Brown on Netflix. Have you guys watched the special on Netflix? Okay, wrong crowd for that. I'm sorry. But she was talking about how it takes like real vulnerability to have like courage. And I think putting yourself out there to be creative is really courageous. And I think if I were to look, because I've interviewed you now a couple times throughout the years, and if I were to look at patterns in your life, you were an actor who walked away from acting when you were a star at a young age, and you kind of took a break. You said, and then you came back and you said, no, I'm not that, I'm this, and people didn't pay attention, and you started HITRECORD anyway. And then also, you could have done the easy thing and raised money in Hollywood where everyone took your calls, and you went to Silicon Valley, where I've been in Silicon Valley for a long time. Even though I know you're Joseph Gordon-Levitt, I'm sure you were met with a lot of skepticism and you had to play hardball in those ways. And I think that takes a lot of vulnerability to kind of put yourself and continue to put yourself in put yourself out there like that. I wonder, where do you think that comes from?
Where does it come from? Wow. I don't know. Where my mind goes is just as a parent myself, I think my parents did a really good job of making me feel safe and able to take those risks. I don't know, so maybe there.
Great. And then when you look now, HITRECORD, and you look to the future, we've now seen it all the way through, like 2004 when we were talking about it was just like a couple lines of code. Where do you see this thing going in the context of the internet and where we're going with kind of trends and whatnot? Where, now that you have this funding and whatnot, what does this look like down the road?
I would just like it to be a place where anybody out there, not just people who want to start a career in show business, but just anybody out there who has that urge to be creative can find a safe and encouraging place, not to become a star necessarily, although I guess that can happen, but not for that, but to have that experience that I've been talking about up here, and to really be creative with other people and have the satisfying journey of being like, okay, let's make something. How do we start? Then what do we have to do? And how can we finish it together? And then we can celebrate it. And that's just been such a satisfying thing for me. I want more and more people to be able to experience that. I don't think that a lot of the big media tech platforms are really providing that exact thing to people. So I think there's a need there to kind of reorient what creativity can really be about and provide a place for that to flourish.
Great. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Which way we go? This way?
I guess